Welcome back to the channel, you curd nerds. We've got yet another mock check ride. Now, this one's going to be pretty exciting because it is an instrument mock check ride. I know we don't do too many of these because there's more private pilots than there are instrument pilots. There's more instrument pilots than there are commercial pilots. There's more commercial pilots than there are multi-engine commercial, ATP, etc. Right? Not everyone goes on to get all of the ratings. Some people just want to be pilots so that they can go to fly-ins, they can go to Oshkosh, they can fly their family around and have a good time. Some people want to go off to be airline pilots. Some people want to go off to be cargo pilots. This student wants to eventually be a contract pilot or like a charter pilot where you're flying to new, interesting places more often, right? Sometimes as an airline pilot, you get stuck on the same route. You do that route every day and it can get a little boring. But this student wants to keep things interesting, and they've got a lot of connections in aviation. So good luck to them. Now let's get into the mock check ride. Let's get into the instrument mock check ride. This student is about to go in for their instrument rating at about 90 hours. So to put that into some context, the average for just private pilot in the United States is around 70 hours. For me, it took 117 hours for me to get my private pilot certificate. So this student is doing pretty well. Now, if you're not on that same track, it's not a big deal. Some people train at different rates. Now, this student did pretty well on this instrument mock check ride. There was a few things I wanted to clean up, and there was a few times where I'm like, that's obviously from a study guide, or there was a few times where it seemed as though they were familiar with their local area when it comes to approach plates, when it comes to taxi diagrams, but the moment you pull them out of their local area, the moment you pull them out of their training environment, they were a little bit more lost, and they wanted to jump right into doing it, talking about it, without reading through it and building a plan first. So remember, if you're going to brief an approach, if you're going to brief a taxi, get the information beforehand. Read it. Build a plan before you start talking, especially when there's an examiner in the other seat. They don't want you to rush straight into the briefings. They don't want you to rush straight into telling them about the taxi. Read it. Build a plan, build a script, and then talk about what you're going to do. And you're going to see some of those shortcomings in this mock check ride. But I want you to let me know in the comments down below if you think that the student would pass an instrument check ride. So without further ado, let's get into the mock check ride. Now, if you are going to go through instrument training and you're a little concerned about how much, well, training's going to cost, how much that ground training is going to cost, and you don't really want to spend the $70 an hour on your instructor, might I recommend Pilot Institute. I've partnered with Pilot Institute because they make material that I can actually stand behind. I'd love to make a ground school to provide for y'all, but I don't have the resources to do so, which is why I've partnered with Pilot Institute, because they make it easy for me to make sure that you can get the appropriate training at, well, maybe a little bit better price point than sitting down with an instructor is going to run you. So go check out a link in the description if you're interested in any of the courses that Pilot Institute offers. Now let's get into the mock check ride. Now that I hit the record buttons, I just want to ask again, are you okay with me recording this mock check ride to be used for content, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc.?
Absolutely, 100%.
Awesome. So went over a little bit of what you're training in, right? You did some training in a Cessna 172 with the G1000, going to be taking the check ride in a Cessna 172 with the G1000 NXI, the real fancy one with the really high refresh rate and whatnot. But before we get into that, tell us about, what got you to this point. How are you enjoying your training? Just tell us how many hours you're at, stuff like that.
So how many hours am I at? Right now, I think I'm at 82 hours. So I think I'll have exactly 94 by the time I take my actual check ride. So, we're doing good. So after high school, I had no idea what I was doing. Literally no idea. So I was like just exploring some things. And my girlfriend's dad is a pilot for FedEx. So I was talking to him about some stuff, and then my girlfriend's a pilot too. So then I kind of got into it. So now I'm a pilot too. So it's just like a bunch of pilots. And then my girlfriend's brother's a pilot too, and he's a flight instructor right now. So it's just tons of pilots. So now I'm a pilot. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, instrument rated under 100 hours. That's actually pretty goddamn solid. If I'm gonna be frank about it, that's pretty solid. Some people, the national average for private pilot is about 70 hours right now. It took me 117 to finish private pilot.
Nothing wrong with that, man.
Nothing wrong with that. But I mean, it's definitely like, I'm gonna try not to inflate your ego too much, but under 100 hours instrument rated private pilot that's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. So, don't let your head get too big. But
never.
Remember, a good pilot's always learning.
Oh, dude, yeah, trust me, every day.
Every day. There's those people that they're like, I'm instrument rated private pilot, whatever, or, commercial pilot. And they never want to learn anything else, but always try to learn something else. End goal being airline pilot, or?
Dude, I want to do some contract work. I want to do corporate contract work. I know it's more like who you know rather than what you know, but I have a couple connections. I'm kind of trying to get my foot in the door with some certain things. Maybe manage a jet or two. I don't know, whatever it takes me. You know what I mean? But I'm just gonna go down that route. I think that's more attractive to me in a way. I feel like the underground, less of a direct path, is more my type of cup of tea. So I'm going for that.
Awesome. I mean, some people like the consistency of airlines. You get those people that once they get high enough on the seniority list, they do the exact same route every day, all day, every day. And then, if they want to do interesting stuff, they just use their airline money to go buy an interesting airplane. If you look at Delta, there's a whole group of Delta airline pilots that own DC-3s just because they make enough money for it.
Crazy, yeah.
Nuts. But yeah, I mean, contract work, it is definitely, at least from what I've seen, it's definitely a lot of who you know. But that's where a lot of aviation jobs are as well. It's a lot of who you know, and are you approachable? Are you nice? Because at the end of the day, we've all passed the same check rides. We've all gotten the same training. If we've gotten to this point talking, to an interviewer, what's more important is, do I want to spend the next 5 days sitting next to your ass?
Yeah, pretty much.
And if the answer is no, I don't care how many check rides you passed on the first try. So awesome. Well, let's get into an instrument rated mock check ride. Right off the bat, there's 3 outcomes to every check ride. You've already taken your private pilot, so satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory just means you're consistently within inside the standards. Doesn't necessarily mean that you don't momentarily fall outside the standards. It means if you do fall outside the standards, you apply a prompt and appropriate correction to get yourself back within the standards. The one that there is no wiggle room on is minimums. Okay, you blow through the minimums by half a foot. I mean, I'm being facetious when I say half a foot, but you blow through minimums, you're done. All right. I think the limit is 50 feet high, but if you blow through the bottom, that's unsatisfactory. Other things that cause unsatisfactory: lost situational awareness. That's how I failed one of my instrument check rides or stage checks. I wasn't keeping track of my DME, and I didn't start my descent on a non-precision approach until I was over the runway, because I was reading the DME from the runway, not the DME from the final approach fix.
That'll do it.
And as soon as he said unsat, I was like, oh, damn, I know exactly what I did, right? So loss of situational awareness obviously would be an unsat. But if you do lose situational awareness, don't be afraid to, simulate to ATC, like, hey, I've lost situational awareness. Can I get a hold at present position? Can I get direct to a fix? Admit that you've gotten lost, okay?
Yeah.
If you do that 5 times, obviously there's a problem. But you do it once after like a missed approach from some kind of like malfunction, that's reasonable. Okay. There was an American Airlines crash that they ended up in the mountains. Only one person survived because the captain was unable to admit to ATC that he was lost.
Oh, geez.
Okay. So don't ever be afraid to admit, saying, hey, I've lost my situational awareness. I need to affix. I need an altitude that'll keep me safe. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've got incomplete. That's really just, we ran out of time, illness, aircraft airworthiness, stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Now, does this G1000, is it equipped with the autopilot?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you trained on it?
the NXI. So in this simulator, I have more flights with it before my check ride, but I kind of know like the flight level change. Climb at a certain airspeed, put in 74 knots, full power, you're gonna climb up, 10 degrees and all that kind of stuff. So, like that kind of, I know like the basics of it. I'm not like too consistent on this, like the really specific nuances of it, but overall, I can use it to fly.
Okay.
Safely.
Just read through the manual, right?
Yeah.
Any equipment that's in an airplane, especially when we get to the instrument level, if you've got an autopilot equipped aircraft, the DPE can say, "Hey, I want you to do a coupled approach."
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're not comfortable with a coupled approach, that's going to cause some issues. I've seen a lot of students, they just immediately smash that autopilot button and they never set anything up, and the airplane's like off doing this thing, trying to kill them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So not saying you don't know how to use the autopilot, just saying that if you haven't read the manual, definitely do so, and maybe spend one whole lesson running through autopilot functions.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
My little kind of takeaway: never engage an autopilot unless you know exactly what it's doing. If the autopilot's not doing what you expect it to do, just disengage it and fly the airplane. We're pilots. If the autopilot did something weird, just fly the aircraft.
Okay? Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So now let's get into the instrument stuff. Right off the bat, when is an instrument rating required?
Flight in instrumental meteorological conditions.
Any other reasons why I would need an instrument rating?
Class A airspace.
Mm-hmm.
Class A airspace, instrument meteorological conditions. Yeah, I think there's a big two. If I'm on a flight plan, I'm going IFR somewhere far away, it's smart to do that. If there's going to be other weather conditions farther away. Yeah.
Okay. Only other things that it's, again, since you're at the private pilot level, special VFR between sunset and sunrise. Okay. The commercial ones, I mean, you're not applying for commercial privileges, so I'm not too concerned about the commercial portion of it. But to act as PIC under IFR or in weather less than VFR is the phraseology from 61.3. And the only reason is because if you're just sitting right seat as like second in command, or if you're just sitting right seat in a single pilot plane, you technically don't really need an instrument rating. Right? And in IFR, so like instrument flight rules. So if I file an instrument flight plan, whether it be VMC outside or not, I still need an instrument rating.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's not just the IMC conditions, because as a private pilot right now, can you file an IFR flight plan and fly it legally?
If as a private pilot?
Yeah. With no instrument rating?
Yeah.
Can you?
Oh, no. Oh, follow a whole entire IFR flight. No.
Right. So you need that instrument rating.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, congratulations, you got your instrument rating. Yay. But now, I don't know, money's tight, airplane's broken. You're saving up to buy your own airplane. So you go something like 7 months without flying at all. And now you went and bought your own airplane, but it's IFR. What do you need to do before you can fly your own airplane home?
Yeah, I need to shoot 6 instrument approaches, holding procedures and tasks, and intercepting and tracking courses using electronic navigation.
Solid. Do you have to do this in an airplane?
I can do it in a simulator, but it has to be at the FAA, it has to like certify it as like an official training device, like an AATD. Yeah, I have to do that with a CFI though. I can't just be by myself.
So I just want to make sure, more than 6 months, recent instrument. Now, why would you use a full flight sim training? Why would you need a CFI?
In the flight sim?
Yeah.
Because it's not like in a real world, it's not like technically like a real scenario. It's a real scenario, but it's not like I'm actually up in the plane and someone to actually make sure I'm actually doing it right in a simulator.
So is anyone there to make sure you're doing it right normally?
Well, I guess if it's like in VFR conditions, I would need a safety pilot.
Does that safety pilot need to be a CFI?
No. So I guess it wouldn't need to be in the simulator either.
Yeah, it could be you could do it in a sim, but you wouldn't need you wouldn't need an instructor. Yeah, so where's it at? 6157 Charlie. The above can be completed in a full flight sim, ATD, FTD, provided the device represents the category and aircraft for the instrument rating privileges maintained, and the pilot performs the tasks, iterations in simulated conditions. A flight instructor is not needed.
Okay. For a simulator, I don't need an instructor.
Okay. I know it because I did it my damn self to maintain instrument currency. I had when I was teaching with UND, I hopped in the Seminole sim and I linked up a bunch of approaches all together and shot a bunch of approaches with the autopilot and maintained currency. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to a safety pilot, what's the minimum that safety pilot needs to be?
They need to at least be a private pilot.
Okay. So let's say you buy a scratcher from the gas station, you win $500,000 off a scratcher, and you decide that you're going to go buy a SR-22 turbocharged Cirrus. Can just a private pilot be your safety pilot?
Turbocharged Cirrus?
Yeah. So, a Cirrus, I think a turbocharged Cirrus has like 280 horsepower. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. I'm not a Cirrus pilot. But it's got damn near 300 horsepower.
Yeah. So then no.
Okay. So what would that private pilot need to be? What else would that private pilot need?
It would need to be training like a high performance aircraft before doing something like that with me. Solid.
Right. So they need to be able to be PIC of the airplane really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
And then like dual controls, right? Like view of the outside the aircraft, all sides to the front. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm trying to think if like a tandem seated aircraft would technically meet that, if it wouldn't meet that requirement. Like a Cub?
Yeah.
Kind of wonder if a Cub would meet that requirement, given that it's kind of hard to see out the front of a Cub.
Yeah.
If you're in the back seat.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think it would be either. So let's kind of pretend that we're getting ready for a flight, right? So you're planning a flight plan, and you're looking at the weather. You're trying to make sure that you're going to abide by all of the requirements set, but and it's going to be an IFR flight. When I'm planning for a destination, when do I need an alternate?
You need an alternate. So if your ETA, like an hour before or after your ETA, the ceilings have to be at least 2,000 feet and then 3 miles visibility. And if it's any lower than that, that's when you need to follow an alternate.
All right. Now, let's say that my destination doesn't have an instrument approach, but the weather is VFR. Do I need an alternate?
If your destination doesn't have an approach, you said?
Yeah. So like, let's say I'm going to, bumblefuck nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's no instrument approaches there. But the weather forecast at bumblefuck nowhere is forecast to be VFR all day. Do I need an alternate if I'm going to fly to bumblefuck nowhere under instrument flight rules?
I mean, I would say no. As long as you can descend from your MEA in VFR conditions and land, you should be good.
So that's the thing that gets a couple people when they think that they don't, or that's what gets a couple people when it comes to that 1-2-3 rule. So the 1-2-3 is the 1 hour before, 1 hour after, 2,000 foot ceilings, 3 mile visibility. There's a little caveat right before that. An instrument approach is published and available for the destination.
Oh,
and 1 hour before, 1 hour after, 2,003 miles.
Okay.
Okay. The reg is 91-169 if you want to read through the whole thing.
Okay. Write this stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Now, when I am looking at an alternate, what needs to be at my alternate for me to be able to say, hey, that's my alternate airport. I'm going to file that one. What's the weather that needs to be?
Well, for non-precision, it has to be 800 foot ceilings and then 2 miles visibility. For precision, it has to be 600 foot ceilings and 2 miles visibility. And then like the MEA thing I said, if there is no approach, I guess, then you have to descend from MEA in VFR conditions. Land.
Solid. VFR conditions. So your airplane is pretty fancy, right? It's got a whole lot of fancy GPS, and we'll get into all that fancy stuff in a second. But since your airplane is a WAAS-equipped GPS, how does that impact my availability for alternates?
Yeah. So since I have WAAS, I can file for a GPS approach or an RNAV approach at my destination and my alternate. If I have, if it doesn't have Baro VNAV or Baro vertical navigation, then I think I can file LNAV at both. But then if I have Baro VNAV, I can file LNAV VNAV at both. Or LNAV at one. Yeah, LNAV at one.
Okay. Yep. Solid. Now, you brought up RNAV and GPS. What does RNAV mean to you?
Just it's just flight without ground facilities, so area navigation. So you're just using stuff in the atmosphere rather than ground facilities like a VOR to go where you need to go, pretty much like your route.
So area nav isn't that I'm not using ground-based facilities. It's that the airplane pretty much is doing it for me.
Okay.
All right. So you remember back with like private pilot, if your instructor got you lost and then you'd like do cross radials and whatnot to figure out where you are.
Yeah.
That's really what RNAV is. The airplane's just doing it for you.
Okay.
The airplane's like, okay, I see that VOR, I see that VOR, I see that DME. Okay, where all of those cross is where the airplane must be.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
GPS is a version of RNAV, is a type of RNAV, where I'm using satellites going, okay, that satellite's 2 seconds away, that satellite's 1 second away, that satellite's 3 seconds away, I must be here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
so
does. Okay.
Area navigation is more, I'm picking up all the signals in the area and navigating via those signals without forcing the pilot to tune, test, and identify a CDI. Okay. Yeah. There's a couple other types of RNAV systems. There's inertial reference units and inertial reference systems. If you're going to be doing contract work, especially in some older airplanes, you might start seeing some IRUs and some IRSs. You don't have an IRU or IRS in your airplane, in your Cessna 172. No. I mean, really what an IRU or an IRS is the airplane says, okay, well, I accelerated at 9.8 meters per second for 20 seconds, so I must have gotten to this speed. Then I didn't accelerate anymore. I didn't slow down or I didn't speed up anymore for another 2 hours. So now I must be here.
Okay.
It's not taking in anything from the outside.
Oh, okay.
All right. So again, you remember private pilot where you were saying, okay, well, if I flew for 20 minutes at 2,400 RPM, that means I must have been at 95 knots. So I must be over this fix now. And then you look outside and you're like, oh yeah, look, there it is.
Yeah. Okay.
That's IRS.
Okay.
All right. Talk to me about what GPS is. What can you tell me about just basic GPS, nothing fancy, just GPS in general?
Yeah, GPS in general. So GPS is just, it utilizes satellites within the atmosphere to kind of give you a precise-ish location of where you are over the Earth.
Okay. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're in the atmosphere. Remember, they're orbiting. They're in low Earth orbit. Yeah. They're in low Earth orbit, not in the atmosphere. If they were in the atmosphere, they'd hit the ground very regularly.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, low Earth orbit. Okay.
Okay. Now, how many satellites do I need just to have a 3D position? Like if I'm just trying to fly from point A to point B, how many satellites do I need?
For that, you just need, I'm pretty sure 4 is the amount that you need just to have like a 3D position.
Okay. Now, what is RAIM?
Receiver autonomous integrity monitoring. So that's just pretty much the system where you need at least 5 satellites for that, which will kind of give you a more precise where you like point where you are over the Earth. You can have a 6th one for fault detection. So it's just integrity. It's like, autonomously checking the integrity of all the satellites and making sure like everything's going.
So
if it's something like detect an error, it'll let you know that as well.
So does RAIM make it more accurate, or does it just check for integrity?
I think it just checks for integrity.
Does just check for integrity?
Yeah. Okay. Checks for integrity.
And you covered all the other details about it, fault exclusion, stuff like that. Now, let's say you lost RAIM, like you're cruising along and the airplane lost RAIM. How would it present it to you? How would you know?
It'll say RAIM. It'll be like a RAIM unavailable. I think it's like a flashing thing that says RAIM, and I'll be flashing.
Okay, where does it show up? Do you have like a?
Say it again.
Where does it show up?
It would show up on my PFD.
Yep. So it'd probably say like RAIM unavailable, RAIM fault, something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Now, so we talked a little bit about WAAS. What is WAAS?
WAAS is the Wide Area Augmentation System. So those are just like the geostational satellites that are like over the equator. They kind of move at the same speed as the Earth. So they look stationary, but they're actually just going at the same speed as the Earth. So these, I think, were created by the FAA, but the GPS system was like the military. But then the FAA was like, hey, we need something a little bit more accurate. So then the FAA made WAAS. So then we put these geostational satellites up in the atmosphere. And then WAAS just pretty much continuously checks and monitors the other satellites to make sure there's any errors. And then there's like ground stations. All the data gets sent to the ground station. Stations send the signal. And then the master stations send the signal to the WAAS satellites and send it to the aircraft, which then will give you your more precise.
Okay. We got there. It was a little roundabout way. Just to clean it up a little bit, what is WAAS? WAAS is Wide Area Augmentation System. Okay. WAAS makes my aircraft more accurate. It allows me to do, more specialized approaches.
Okay.
The way WAAS works is I'm going to receive a signal from the regular old GPS satellites. Okay. There's going to be ground stations that are also going to receive that signal. Since the ground stations are aware of their location, they receive those signals, apply any corrections that are necessary. They'll send that up to a geostationary satellite. Now, what are geostationary satellites? They're satellites that stay above the same point on the Earth all the time. They're moving at the same rate of rotation as the Earth. Those geostationary satellites will then send me, the aircraft, any corrections that need to be applied to those other GPS satellites, allowing my aircraft to be more accurate. Now, WAAS also allows me to do a couple extra approaches. I'm going to ask you, what are those approaches that WAAS allows you to do?
So yeah, I can do like RNAV approaches with the LPV minimums. So it's pretty much the same minimums as like an ILS would be most of the time. It allows me to do those approaches, and then it also allows me to do the Baro VNAV approaches as well. LNAV VNAV.
Okay, and there's one more.
It also allows me to do what am I thinking? PAR approaches? No. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know the third one.
LP.
LP, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So localizer performance, right?
Okay, yeah.
But since you brought it up, what's a PAR approach?
I don't know too much about those.
Okay.
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah, because it's going to be it's difficult to convince ATC to spin up that damn radar. I've been able to get I've been able to do like 3 out of the almost decade I've been flying, and ATC hates it because they, if it's not necessary, it's a lot more work for them. It's a precision approach radar. Oh, really what it is, there's a real fancy radar on the ground, and ATC gives you instructions. They talk you through it. It's an audible it's, you could think of it as an audible ILS or an audible an audible ILS.
I need specific training for that too, right? I think like the controller, I think might need specific training for it. I think. I don't know. I thought I heard something about that. I don't know.
I know the military needs special training for it. I've done it.
Okay.
What else? Yeah. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, GPS, pretty solid. Your airplane's got some real fancy GPS in it, so knowing how to use it is great. Now, if you passed the final approach fix on an approach, like let's say we're planning on doing the LPV, and you passed the final approach fix and you saw an LOI flag on your CDI, can I continue this approach or do I need to go missed?
LOI?
Yep.
And you said what situation? So I'm past my final approach fix.
Past your final. Yep. So we're doing an LPV approach. Everything's
approach,
good.
okay.
Everything's good at the final approach fix. 20 seconds later, you get an LOI, yellow LOI, Lima, Oscar, India, on your CDI.
Okay. I would say I can continue the approach, but down to LNAV minimums, not LP minimums.
Okay. So you're good for 5 minutes when that LOI flag pops. So you can continue
What's
to
the LOI flag?
loss of integrity.
Loss of integrity.
Loss of integrity. When you go up and do a couple more lessons, tell your instructor to turn off WAAS.
Okay.
Right.
Because I've been flying without it. Like the only plane that I'm with is my check ride one. So I've been training with just RAIM.
Mm-hmm.
So LOI. So LOI, is that like a WAAS specific?
Yep. It pretty much just means that you lost WAAS.
Okay.
You've been flying G1000s that don't have WAAS?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
That is
weird. I know.
Nuts. Who would spend that kind of money on an avionics package and not get WAAS?
Dude, I don't know.
G1000 is like a $250,000 avionics package.
I know.
I
know. I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
I don't understand it either. So I haven't really seen that yet. That's something that I haven't.
Well, here's the thing. It's really difficult to lose WAAS.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard it's like almost like perfect.
Yeah,
it's like almost perfect.
It's almost unheard of to lose WAAS, but it's possible, right? Like it's almost unheard of to have an engine failure, but we still practice them.
Yep.
Okay. But when you lose WAAS, right? If you're past the final approach fix, you're good for 5 minutes. If you're before the final approach fix, again, technically you're good for 5 minutes, but is it worth the risk? No, right.
No.
And also, did you miss it? Did that LOI flag pop on 10 minutes ago and now you just noticed it?
Yeah, that's not good.
Right? Yeah. So if I get an LOI flag before the final approach fix, I don't continue. Okay. Now, GPS, it's awesome, but we still need to learn about ground-based navigation aids. So we'll talk about an ILS. What are the 3 big main components of an ILS?
Yeah, I'd say the localizer, the glide slope, and I'd say the approach lighting system as well.
Okay. So the localizer and the glide slope, they kind of go hand in hand. They are viewed as your guidance segment.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you've got your distance segment, which could be marker beacons, GPS, DME, cross radials.
Okay. Marker beacons too, yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then you also have your lighting system. You have your visual segment. Okay. So what are the 3 big items of an ILS, or 3 big segments, 3 big pieces of an ILS? You have guidance, which includes your localizer, your glide slope. Then you have distance, which is things like DME, cross radials, marker beacons, something that will tell you how far you are away. And then you have your visual segment. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if I am 16 miles away from if I'm reading 16 DME off of my GPS, my GPS based DME, and I'm like 30 degrees off course from my localizer, am I going to pick up that localizer signal, or is that localizer signal reliable?
I would say it's not reliable. I think out that far, within 10 degrees, I think you're okay. But 30 is a little bit too greater until you get to a little bit closer, yeah.
Okay, solid. How does your localizer work?
How does the localizer work? So it just emits a signal in a specific direction, and you pick up that signal, and that'll tell you, your lateral guidance down to the runway. It's like 4 times more strong than like a VOR. Yeah, usually between like 3 and 6 degrees, I would say.
Okay. Now, is it working just like a VOR? Because like a VOR, it sends out 2 signals, right? It sends out a standing wave, which is where my Morse code and all that jazz comes across. Then it sends out a variable wave, which the difference between the variable wave and the standing wave, that angular distance between them, is the radio that I'm on. Is that how a localizer works?
I haven't thought about it that deeply, no.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how it works.
So we've got 2 lobes that come off of a localizer. We've got that 150 hertz and the 90 hertz. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, it's just how much is the airplane receiving of each one of them, right? Because if I'm too far to the right, I'm going to pick up too much of that 150 hertz, and it's going to be drowning out the 90 hertz. So the airplane's picking up that 150, showing you right, of course. If you pick up too much of the 90 hertz, the airplane's like, oh, well, we're too far left, of course. You need to go to the right.
Okay.
That's why it's so much more accurate. Because of VOR, I mean, it's like VORs, like they're good. But remember, they're also showing angular distance at the ranges that you might be operating at. Like they could be kind of far off. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Glide slope, it's the same idea. You got a 50 hertz or you got a 150 hertz and a 90 hertz. And if you pick up too much of one, you're high or low.
Okay.
Now, if ATC screws up and drops me on top of the glide slope, what am I risking by coming in above the glide slope?
What are you risking when you come above the glide slope?
Mm-hmm.
You can get a false glide slope.
Okay. How would you identify that if you picked up the false glide slope?
How would I identify if I picked up a false glide slope? I would say, I don't really know about that either. I would say maybe if you're, depending on where you are, if you can kind of like see like, okay, I'm this far away from the runway, and it's showing me that I'm this much higher than I should be. I feel like you can kind of look at that and be like, all right, that's not right.
Okay.
Maybe just kind of going through some data.
Now a false glide slope is usually a lot steeper. In your airplane, a false glide slope, unless you got like a 50 knot tailwind, in your airplane, a false glide slope, if you actually track it, you're probably going to be looking at like 1,600 feet per minute.
Oh, wow.
And that's pretty steep, right?
Yeah.
Some of them also reverse sense. Because the reason the false glide slope is happening is the 150 hertz is reflecting off of the ground.
Okay.
So that puts the 150 hertz on top of the 90 hertz, which would mean normally the 90 hertz is above the 150 hertz. So if you end up reflecting that 150 off the ground above the 90, it makes it really steep and also makes them backwards.
Okay.
So you'll try to dive for it and the glide slope will just keep walking away because they're reversed. Okay. So if you ever catch yourself seeming like they're descending at way too steep on an ILS, you probably picked up a false glide slope. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to that visual segment, this is a visual segment on any approach, right? Not just the ILS, but what do I need to see so that I can descend below my minimum descent altitude or decision altitude?
Yeah. So kind of like the 91-175 list.
Yeah. Sure. That's
pretty much. Yeah. I would just say, I can go through it if you want, but I would just say 91-175 list. And then I guess they talk about like, if you see the white approach lights, you can descend 100 feet lower, but then you can't descend below that unless you see the red terminating bars. Yeah.
So this is one of the things that like, hey, I'm just going to look at the reg. I wouldn't necessarily say would pass because if I'm tracking down an ILS down to minimums, I'm not going to go, fuck, what was 91-175?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The runway
marking,
threshold markings, threshold lights, runway and identifier lights, glide slope indicator. Touchdown zone markings, touchdown zone lights. Yeah.
Now, you said I might have missed it a little bit, but talk to me about if I'm tracking down on ILS, right, and all I see is the white rabbits. What can I descend down to?
100 feet above the runway, and then if I don't get the red terminating bars at sight, then I can descend below that.
All right. So it's not 100 feet above the runway; it's 100 feet above touchdown zone elevation.
Okay.
Touchdown zone runway elevation, touchdown zone elevation, two different things, right? I'm assuming you've landed at a sloping runway at one point in time in your life, right?
Yep.
Some of them can get pretty drastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Not bad so far. Just little corrections, cleaning up little things here and there. So not bad. I say, we're still tracking for a solid IFR check. Now let's talk about your instrumentation in your aircraft. Given that it's a glass system, You don't have a vacuum pump. You don't have old steam gauges or anything like that, do you?
Yeah, no.
No, right? It's
So,
all
like,
glass.
like the ones I train in, like the regular ones, non-NXI, they always have a couple standbys that are still like steam gauge, but mainly just on the glass. But I think in the NXI, yeah, there's none.
Okay, so there's probably a glass one, an EFIS, an electronic flight
Yeah,
instrument. Yep.
Yeah, not a steam gauge though.
Okay, so if you're cruising along and all of a sudden your airspeed indicator and your altimeter die, you just get red X's over them. Which system has died?
Airspeed and altitude, so my air data computer.
No, so your ADC.
Yeah.
Now, is there any way that you could get your primary flight instruments back if your PFD just goes blank?
If my whole entire PFD go blank, yeah, just like the standby button and put it on my right side.
Okay, solid. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about some old steam gauges because remember, your instrument rating doesn't limit you to glass, does it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. What instruments are powered generally by your vacuum pump?
So my vacuum pump is going to be my directional, like my directional gyro, my directional gyro, turn coordinator, and yeah, my mag compass as well.
Is your compass vacuum driven?
My compass? Is
that what you said? Your compass?
Oh, no, not my compass. My bad.
Okay.
No.
Now turn coordinators, they can be vacuum driven. Most of the time they're not. All right. I know you haven't done you haven't done much training in six pack, but it's normally your heading indicator and your attitude indicator. Okay.
Heading attitude. Okay.
Those are the two that are primarily the ones that are done with vacuum. Your turn indicator, your whether it be a turn coordinator or a turn and slip indicator, are most of the time electric. Yes, I've seen vacuum driven ones, but they've been in like 1960s tail dragger Cessnas.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And those ones are powered by the little Venturi tube on the outside of the airplane. But
yeah,
your heading indicator, what gyroscopic principles at play when you in your heading indicator?
It's just rigidity in space.
Solid. Now what about your attitude indicator?
Attitude indicator is rigidity in space as well.
Okay. What is the difference between a turn coordinator and a turn and slip indicator?
A turn coordinator shows your rate of turn and rate of roll, and then a turn and slip just shows rate of turn, but it doesn't show your rate of roll.
Describe to me like the difference. Like if I was to get into an airplane, how could you tell the difference between a turn and slip indicator and a turn coordinator?
Turn and slip and a turn coordinator. Man, I don't know. Okay. I haven't really seen a turn and slip. I've only seen a turn coordinator.
Okay, well I'll just pull some up just so you can see the difference.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. There we go. So this is really the difference.
Okay.
The turn coordinator has an airplane. The turn and slip just has a line.
All
right.
Okay.
So if you were just to hop in a random old airplane and you saw just a line pointing either left or right, that's a turn and slip indicator. If you saw an artificial airplane, then you'd be looking at a turn coordinator.
Okay.
All right. Now this also gets into how they function differently. Right, a turn and slip indicator. The gyro is mounted with the plane of the airplane, like with the line of the airplane. It's mounted flat, so it only responds to yaw. Since it works on precession, so it only responds to yaw. The turn coordinator, since it's canted at like about 45 degrees, it responds to both roll and yaw.
Okay.
All right, so that's why one shows one shows rate of roll and the other one doesn't.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Now if my static port got plugged, what instruments would be impacted?
Sag port, airspeed would be affected. My vertical speed would be affected, and my altimeter would be affected as well.
So how would that impact your airspeed indicator?
Airspeed indicator, if it gets blocked, so my airspeed will freeze at the altitude that it was blocked at, but then change as I go in different altitudes.
Will it freeze?
Oh, the altitude that it freezes at, like it won't like freeze at, but when I go up in higher altitudes, my airspeed's gonna read lower, and if I go lower, it's gonna read higher.
Okay. Is there any way in your airplane that you could resolve this problem?
Yeah, alternate static air.
Okay.
I gotta pull that out.
Now, what do you need to be concerned about when you pull out that alternate static air?
Yeah, so my airspeed is gonna read higher. My altimeter is gonna read higher. My VSI is gonna momentarily show a climb.
All right, solid. Now, normally, what instrument are you using for bank information?
For my bank information,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would just say my turn coordinator.
Does your turn coordinator show what angle of bank you are?
I guess no, not really.
Okay. Turn coordinator is not a bad backup when it comes to bank information. What else might give you bank information?
I guess my attitude indicator, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where else?
attitude indicator. Sorry, I was thinking about that too deeply.
No, you're good. You're good. Where else? Let's say your attitude indicator broke. Where else could you get bank information other than, well, as you said, your turn coordinator?
Other than those two,
Mhm.
I would say bank information. I guess I could use my heading indicator as well. Heading indicator. That fails. Mag compass.
Well, yeah. I mean, we'd revert to our heading indicator.
Yeah.
Heading indicator I like more than my attitude indicator. Because remember, if I just stomp on the rudder and I crank on my bank, my rate of roll indicator, my turn coordinator, it'll drop that wing momentarily. So, and my attitude indicator, it'll show me all cattywampus. Right?
Yeah.
But my heading indicator won't. My heading indicator will stay locked in as long as my rudder is pointed that direction. So, if I'm just paying attention to my attitude indicator, trying to keep my wings level, I could end up uncoordinated. Okay. Now, you know what? I'll look at that when we look at the nav chart. I'm just looking through any of my other notes to see if there's any big things. What are some common errors when it comes to just flying in instrument conditions?
Errors flying in instrument conditions.
Mm-hmm. Or I guess better way to put it. What are some common errors when it comes to scanning your instruments?
Scanning my instruments, maybe fixation.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely is one of them. Fixating on a certain instrument. Neglecting a certain instrument. That's important. Neglecting fixation, and maybe just kind of forgetting to do the actual cross check. Kind of maybe get distracted with stuff inside the airplane.
Now, what could you do to try and ensure that you keep scanning? What kind of skills or habits have you developed to try and prevent you from falling victim to like omission, or especially fixation on an instrument?
Yeah, I think for me, for me, it's just staying conscious of everything I'm doing, constantly thinking ahead, thinking, hey, what's next? What can I do next? What can I stay ahead of here? What's going to happen next? That kind of thing. I think just for me, just staying conscious of everything and really focusing up on what's going on inside the airplane helps me the most.
All right. Not bad. I know when I was going through instrument training, I'd tap my foot. Every time I tap my foot, I'd tap my foot every time I'd change my instrument. And if I noticed that I stopped tapping my foot, I probably am staring at an instrument. Yeah. That's just my little tip, my little tidbit that I tried that worked for me. Apparently it didn't work that well given that I was paying attention to the wrong DME, but let's get a little bit of weather when it comes to IFR because you're going to be in the weather. So it makes it a little, so you got to be a little bit more cognizant, right? No longer are we just looking at the METAR and going, that METAR looks too long, so the weather must be bad. Right? That tap is more than 4 lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about thunderstorms to begin with. What are the 3 big things I need for a thunderstorm?
You need some lifting force, unstable temperature lapse rate, and moisture as well.
Okay. What are the 3 big stages? What are not 3 big stages? What are just the 3 stages of a thunderstorm?
Yeah, you got your cumulus, mature, and your dissipating stage.
How do I know the mature stage has started?
That's when rainfall starts to fall from the cloud base. From the cloud base of the thunderstorm. Yeah.
What makes an embedded thunderstorm more dangerous than just a regular old thunderstorm?
Those are harder to detect. They're kind of like embedded or hidden, kind of like over other clouds, and it can be kind of dangerous if you get caught up in one of those because it's harder to see.
Yep. When would you expect clear ice versus like if we're cruising along, because you're again IFR rated, and I saw these conditions outside. I looked up at my outside air temperature and I saw this, or I guess on yours it's on the dash. But I looked at my outside air temperature and I saw these conditions outside the airplane. I should expect clear ice. What conditions would these be?
To expect clear ice?
Yeah.
I would say a temperature like 0 degrees Celsius to get to negative 10 degrees Celsius. If I looked at that and I saw that would be, I feel like, a good indicator. That's a little bit warmer, of the warmer temperatures. Clear ice happens. I would say cumulus clouds, cumulonimbus clouds. I wouldn't fly in those, but intentionally. But cumulus clouds, maybe it's more like a, I would think those are the 2 big things. I would say the type of clouds, the temperature, which I'm going to be flying in.
Okay. So if I saw, I don't know, negative 8 degrees outside, but I was in like a misty conditions, would I expect clear ice?
If I was in misty conditions?
Yeah.
Would I expect clear ice? I would say if I was in misty conditions, I think, yes, I would expect clear ice.
Okay. So clear ice, it's formed by large supercooled liquid water droplets. All right. And they occur between negative 10 and 0 most often. Right. But we need those large droplets. Okay. Right.
Large droplets. Okay.
When it comes to misty, kind of foggy, freezing fog conditions, those are the ones where air gets caught up in the ice and it starts looking opaque. Okay. What kind of ice would this be?
Yeah. That would be the RAIM ice. Yeah.
That'd be the RAIM ice. Okay. Which one of these would you say is more dangerous?
Definitely the clear ice for sure.
Why is clear ice more dangerous than RAIM ice?
Clear ice kind of freezes in like layers and sheets, and it can be really hard to detect sometimes because it looks pretty clear. It really just decreases lift, really causes more negative things upon your airplane.
Okay, so it's hard, it's heavy, it's hard, it's difficult to remove.
Yeah.
Okay. RAIM ice, it's like that. Have you ever like opened your grandma's freezer and you notice that like the insides of it is like full of that like dusty ice?
Yeah.
That's RAIM ice.
Okay.
You see how easy that is to remove?
Yeah, you just easy.
But then, in that same grandma's house, you try and crack some ice out of that ice tray from the 1940s and the ice just doesn't want to come out. That's clear ice.
Yeah, that's the worst. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What's dangerous about, like, let's say it's a little bit chilly today. I'm going to be flying up into weather, right? I'm going to be flying up into the clouds because I'm an instrument pilot, so I can do shit like that.
Yeah.
What would make it dangerous? Or would you recommend filling up an airplane with fuel and then taking off straight into instrument conditions? Especially in your airplane where the fuel is stored in the wing.
And you said if it is freezing conditions, you said?
I wouldn't necessarily say freezing conditions, but it's chilly. Like let's say it's 5 degrees Celsius outside.
5 degrees Celsius outside. I don't know. That would not be smart. No.
No. So what makes filling up gas more? What makes putting gas in the airplane dangerous?
Makes it more heavy.
Okay. So it's not even necessarily that it's heavy. It's the idea. What ends up happening when you start putting the gas in the wing? It's a lot of times cold gas. Have you ever seen a fuel truck parked inside?
No.
No, you've never seen a fuel truck parked inside. So what temperature do you think that fuel is?
Pretty chilly, yeah.
Right. So now we're going to put that chilly fuel in the wing, and fuel, it doesn't freeze. So fuel can get really cold. It can get to -10, -20 degrees, and it can hold on to that. And then it's going to it's going to cold soak your wing.
Cool down. Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's going to cause frost accumulation.
Okay.
Okay.
I never thought about that. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Now, let's say you picked up a little bit of ice and you grabbed an ILS to get yourself out of the icing conditions. How is that going to impact your landing? What are you going to change about your approach? What are you going to change about your landing if you've picked up ice on your airplane?
I'm really going to think twice about retracting any flaps. If I already have any ice on me, I think increasing even more drag, if there really is an increased amount of drag because of the ice, might cause some negative side effects with that. I might just make sure that I have enough airspeed, maybe like 5 to 10 knots, a little bit faster, just to ensure that I don't, stall or anything like that. I'll just go in a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more straight in, like level, rather than just nose down, and then just not retract as many flaps. I would just try to avoid that. Maybe do a no flap landing, or at most maybe 10 degrees of flaps landing.
Okay. I'm trying to find your POH. I opened it up and I lost it.
And then maybe turn on carb heat all the way just to defrost everything if I can. That kind of thing, yeah.
Do you have carb heat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not carb, yeah.
Carb heat, pitot heat?
Cabin heat.
Cabin heat.
Yeah, I have pitot heat and then cabin heat. Yeah, my bad. I didn't mean to say carb. I meant to say cab heat, like cabin heat. Yeah, cabin heat. I'll put the cabin heat on, pitot tube, and yeah, I'll go from there. I think it also mentions in the POH to do like a forward slip down the runway if like your visibility is really low because of the frost in the windshield. Little nuances like that.
Okay.
Let ATC know.
So I'm trying to find the specific section in your POH that talks about approaches with icing. If I remember it correctly, approaches with icing, you're going to look at 75 to 85 knots approach speed. You're going to try to land flat. You're not going to use flaps.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason you're not going to use flaps is because if you've picked up ice, you're starting to get disturbed airflow over the tail. You start dropping flaps.
Yeah.
You could end up disturbing the airflow enough that you'll stall the tail. Have you ever stalled the tail?
No, it's not good though.
No, the nose drops immediately.
Yeah.
Right. And it's real hard to regain control of it. You've really got to get the airflow smooth over the tail again. And you're going to land super flat. Now your airplane, given it's a Cessna, it's a high wing. You can't see the wing. So where would you look to see if you're actually picking up ice?
The leading edge of the wing.
Can you see the leading edge?
The leading edge?
Yeah. Can you like look out like here in this little Piper, right? We can see the leading edge pretty well. We can just look out to the side. Right. Yeah. In your little Cessna 172, is it really easy to look up at the leading edge?
Yeah, no. So then we could use the brackets that kind of connect the wing down to the actual fuselage of the airplane. If it's building up on that thing, then obviously most likely it's going to be building up on the wing itself as well.
Yep. So struts, ice is usually going to build up on thin items first, right?
Yeah.
Anytime I've picked up ice in a Cessna, the first place ice starts picking up is on those little strings that come off the tire.
Yeah. So actually, I was just flying like my long cross country. We actually an actual when we were in icing conditions, and it's crazy because it's cool seeing like actually where it does build up, and like you said on the tires, the strings, it started building up on there like really quick. It started building up on the fuel vent pretty quick as well. On the tire, actually, it started to get some frost on the front end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main 3 places that I saw a lot of ice, and then on the strut as well.
Yep.
I saw some ice as well. Yeah.
Now that you bring up that fuel vent, if that thing completely iced over, what's going to happen?
So when that completely ices over, then pretty much it could create like a I think it's called like a venturi, like a suction system within it, and it's kind of going to disallow fuel to kind of flow down properly into the engine.
Okay, so I could end up with an engine failure.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, not awesome. Not a good thing.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about some spatial disorientation and illusions. Now, describe to me what a false horizon is, and maybe give me a couple examples of where you might experience a false horizon.
Yeah, false horizon is kind of like almost like a kind of an area that's very similar in terrain that you might look at it and it might be like, oh, that might be the horizon, but in reality, it's like a dark area, like a long stretch of a river or a large lake, something that has like it's black and just kind of like a line that could kind of make you think, oh shoot, that's my horizon, and yeah, it's actually not.
Okay. Now, what if it's just like day conditions, right? It's day. It's a nice day outside, right?
Okay.
But we climbed above a layer.
Okay.
Where might I experience false horizon up there? Like, why?
Yeah, so if you have multiple layers of different clouds, maybe there's one that like, oh, that's horizon, but in reality, it's just actually like a higher up layer of clouds, and it could be completely wrong, and then you're just throwing yourself off, and then you're actually nose down, your nose up, and then those kind of things.
Okay. Another one is if you've got like a sloping cloud formation, right? So if you've got, frontal movement, right? If you've got a real shallow frontal movement, you could end up with a sloping cloud base. And obviously, if you're just facing that slope, like if you're traveling perpendicular to that frontal movement, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if you're flying along that frontal movement, right? If I'm flying along that frontal line and I get that slope out in front of me, I could be like, oh, well, the clouds should be level with the horizon. So, boop. And then I start flying like a little cattywampus.
Yeah.
Now, let's say ATC, they needed to give you a little bit of a vector because there's some traffic in front of you. Okay. And they're trying to build some spacing because you and your Cessna 172 is just getting way too close to that person in front of you. You're just cruising way too fast. Never heard that before, right?
Yeah.
So they tell you...
I've been told to slow down, too.
Oh, wow. That's surprising. Once.
Yeah.
ATC has asked me, is that all you got? I'm like, yeah, that's all I got. Leave me alone. But let's say ATC, they're like, hey, Cessna 123, make a left turn 90 degrees. I'm going to give you some delay vectors to give some spacing. So you start making that left turn. Then ATC is like, all right, make another left turn 90 degrees. We'll get you back around on course. So now you're 180 degrees from where you started. And then they're like, all right, we'll give you another left turn 90 degrees. All right, since you're halfway through that one, continue on that left turn 90 degrees. So I just went through a fairly prolonged turn, right? I made a 360 degree turn. If I did that at standard rate, it should take me 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm in IFR conditions, what should I be concerned about now? What is my body maybe telling me after I just went through a prolonged turn?
Yeah, prolonged turn. It might seem like you're actually turning in the opposite direction that you were turning in the whole entire time. Like you might start to think, wait, am I actually turning to the right? And it might mess you up as well. And it might,
Okay, so what is this called?
Graveyard spiral.
Okay, so it could lead to a graveyard spiral.
Okay. Is it Coriolis illusion?
So Coriolis has got more to do with you kind of like moving your head back and forth, trying to look for shit in the airplane. You ever heard of the leans?
The leans, okay.
Leans. So after leveling the wings following a prolonged turn, the pilot may feel as if the aircraft is banked to the opposite direction of the turn. And then it leads into a graveyard spiral, right? A pilot in a prolonged, coordinated, constant rate turn may experience the illusion of not turning after leveling the wings. The pilot may feel the sensation of turning in the other direction, the leans, causing the pilot to turn back to the original direction. Since the higher angle of attack required during a turn to maintain level, the pilot may notice a loss of altitude. Apply back pressure to the elevator. This will tighten up the spiral, increasing the loss of altitude. Okay.
Okay.
So pretty much the
Yeah.
pilot stops paying attention to their attitude indicator. I know I tell people to like rely on other instrumentation other than your attitude indicator, but they stop trusting their
Yeah.
instruments.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
They think that their heading indicator has failed, and that's why it's spiraling.
Okay.
Okay. Because that's not an uncommon failure for a heading indicator, right? If you got a heading indicator from the 70s that you've never replaced, never rebuilt, never done any maintenance to, that thing to seize up and just start spinning rapidly out of control, not unreasonable, not an unreasonable failure. But graveyard spiral, that's how it happens. It starts with the leans and ends up the pilot ends up spiraling down.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me just make sure I'm looking through any more of my notes before we start digging into things like the navigation charts and whatnot.
Yeah.
I know you sent me a couple airports that you might be flying from and flying to. So we'll try and focus on those, given that that's where you're going to be. World low. And here we are. You see this chart?
Yeah. Is there a way I can enlarge it? I'm not too familiar with Reddit.
Or this Discord. So if you click on just my face, if you click on just my screen, and you see how it got bigger?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. So cool. Just to make sure, this is what, you can see you now. This is what it normally looks like, right? And if you just click on who you want to see, it'll make it a little bigger. All right.
Okay. I got it. Cool.
So let's come on, go away. There we go. So we're looking at this chart, and of course I'll zoom in so you can see a little bit more.
Yeah.
What are these squiggly lines?
So that airway is not authorized for navigation anymore.
Okay, so it's closed airway, right? And you said we're going from, is it from Lancaster or to Lancaster?
From Lancaster to Johnstown.
From Lancaster to Johnstown. Okay, so let's look at some of the charting of Lancaster. Oh, there's no departure procedures. It's so easy. Let's go to another airport close by then. Sure. Philadelphia. No, that's not what I want. I want the airport, not the TFR. So I'm looking at the Philadelphia 3. I don't know if you want to pull it up just so you have it as well.
Yeah.
And I just want you to tell me, can you do this departure procedure?
Philadelphia 3.
Yep. So looking at
departure procedure.
Yep. The KPHL, the Philadelphia 3. And I just wanted to know, can you do this departure procedure? And then if so, we'll talk about it.
Okay. Can I do this departure procedure?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So give me a briefing. Like, tell me, like, let's say I'm the other pilot in the plane. Brief me on this approach so that we can create that shared mental model of how this, or not approach, sorry, on this departure procedure. Give me a briefing on it. Tell me what we're going to accomplish. What are we going to do?
Yeah, so we're going to,
Sorry, let me give you a runway. We're going to plan on runway 9 left for our departure.
9 left. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
9 left. So the takeoff minimums, we'll start with those standard with the minimum climb of 280 feet, an amount of 1,500. The top altitude for this departure is going to be 5,000. And for 9 left, 3. I'm just trying to pull up the other. There. Obviously, we would be on the departure forum. Yeah, but that's pretty much.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy, straightforward, right? We're taking off a 9 left. We're climbing on a heading as assigned by ATC. Looks like we got a top altitude of 5,000. Minimum climb gradient of 200 feet per nautical mile, up to 1,500. How do you know that you can do that? What feet per minute? What was up?
You say, how did I know I can do that?
Yeah. So what feet per minute would we need to maintain? Is your aircraft capable of that feet per minute?
Yes, it is capable of that feet per minute.
Okay. So what is the feet per minute necessary?
So I don't know how to do that calculation yet.
Okay.
That's one thing that I kind of scraped over. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. So there's some quick back of the napkin math. Let me grab that real quick. Where'd it go? Because I'm not gonna lie, I use my CX3.
Okay.
I use the this thing, and it's fair game for you to use that or use something like that on your iPad. Just make sure you have like backup, batteries, something like that.
Okay, what's CX3? I don't even heard of CX3.
Oh, it's an electric E6B.
Okay.
Oh, where did it go? Did I put it in my departure procedure notes? Departure procedure. So feet per minute is equal to feet per nautical mile times ground speed divided by 60. Okay, so if we took this 9 left, for example, I'm just going to open up a calculator, not my fancy one, but just a calculator. Okay. There it is, calculator. So I'm looking at 280 feet per nautical mile. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to multiply that by my ground speed. A nice solid ground speed for a Cessna during its climb out would be 80, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that gives me 22,400. Now I'm going to divide that by 60, which gives me a feet per minute of 373.
Said 373.
370 feet per minute. Can you maintain 370 feet per minute up to 1,500 feet?
Yes.
Solid. Definitely know how to do that. Practice that a couple different times. Go look at a couple different departure procedures. Because the last thing that you want to end up is saying, yes, I can do this, because you didn't see any restrictions, right? We don't see jets only. We don't see turboprop only. We don't see anything like that. There's a departure procedure out of Vegas that doesn't say jets, turbos, turboprops, blah, blah, blah. But it needs something like 1,400 feet per minute up to 3,000 feet.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Right? And I'm not gonna lie, I made the mistake going, I don't see no jets. I don't see none of that nonsense. I couldn't maintain the climb gradient. I was like, oh God. And I was like doing the math in the right seat while my student was flying the airplane. We were in VMC, visual meteorological conditions, but we couldn't maintain the required climb gradient for the departure procedure. But I didn't do the math beforehand because I didn't see no jets. I didn't see I didn't see only jets or no pistons or anything like that. But I didn't do the math. And I definitely couldn't maintain it. If we were in actual IFR conditions, we very likely could have impacted the terrain.
Oh, wow.
We were in VMC conditions, so we just said, hey, ATC, I'm not maintaining climb gradient I expected or I needed. So can I get a vector? Can I do a circle here? Can I do a visual climb over the airport so that I can maintain the climb gradient I need? All right. Yeah. If you need a little bit more, departure procedures is AIM 5-2-9 for more details on departure procedures if you want to go study those. But that little rule, back of the napkin math, your feet per minute is feet per nautical mile times your ground speed divided by 60, round up, just to be safe, right? So if I did that math and I saw 373 feet per minute, I'd say, all right, I need at least 400 feet per minute up to 1,500 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. And using like the CX3 or, I think there's probably something on your iPad that you could download too, right?
Yeah.
Let's look around. Looking at VORs for a second. All of these are
Yeah, a lot of them are the similar out here.
Yeah, they are very similar. Okay. What's the big difference between the Robbinsville and the Lakehurst VOR?
Robbinsville is a high. a high one, and then a Lakehurst is a terminal one.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So the high one just has bigger service volumes and larger service volumes for the VOR to be that you can operate on over, and then Lakehurst is terminal, so it's more of a smaller, it has a smaller service volume.
Okay,
for that VOR.
So there's no routes that come off of the Lakehurst VOR. Would you agree?
Yeah, no.
Okay, but there are routes that come off the Robbinsville VOR.
Yeah.
So if I was out on this route off of the Robbinsville VOR, like let's say here, I don't know, that's pretty far away. How do I know I can still get signal?
How do you know if you can still get signal?
Mm-hmm. Or does it matter since I'm on a route?
From which VOR? The Robbinsville?
Yeah, the Robbinsville VOR. Because I don't see a changeover point along that entire route telling me that there's nothing for me to change to, right? But that looks pretty far, especially if I'm only down here at like 6,000 feet. Does it matter if I'm on a route?
I would say it does, depending on what altitude you're at. Because of the service volumes.
Okay.
With the VOR.
So if I'm on the route,
it doesn't matter.
Service volumes don't matter.
Okay, on the route, service volumes don't matter.
That's why we have things like changeover points.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we have things like MEAs. That's why we have things. Well, what is an MEA?
It's your minimum entry altitude.
Okay. So which one of these is my MEA? Is it the 3,000 or is it the 1,500?
That is the 3,000.
Okay. What is the 1,500?
That's your minimum obstruction clearance altitude.
All right. What does minimum obstruction clearance altitude give me?
It's just the minimum altitude at which you can be clear of all obstacles.
All right.
On that route.
Will it guarantee me any kind of nav coverage?
No, it doesn't. No, just the obstruction clearance.
Okay, so let me just grab my notes, just make sure I'm not. Because if I remember correctly, minimum obstruction clearance altitude doesn't just give me obstruction clearance, it also guarantees me nav coverage within 22 miles of the...
Yeah, I think you're right.
Of the VOR or of the nav source, right? So minimum obstruction clearance altitude provides obstacle clearance navigation coverage only up to 22 nautical miles.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. What is this flag with the X on it?
That's a minimum crossing altitude.
Okay, so what is the crossing altitude for, like, let's say I'm heading southwest on Victor...
Let me see if I can pull up that VOR really quick so I can go where you are.
Yep. So we are at the...
Robbinsville.
Yeah, so we're coming off of the Robbinsville VOR on Victor 276. When would I need to start my climb on Victor 276? Would it be before or after the flag?
To start I would say it would be, to get to the crossing altitude before or after the flag is what you're asking?
Yep. Okay,
then I would say get before it so you can cross it at that altitude.
Yep, that's why it's a minimum crossing altitude, right? Because if I see... What are these little tick marks on the side of this fix for?
That's just for like MEA changes.
Okay, so when do I start climbing? Or descending?
Yeah. That's after you reach the tick mark.
Yep, so either, at or after the associated fix. Awesome. Now, if I was doing this, I would probably go Wheeling.
Okay. Wyland.
Wouldn't you agree? Wyland. Then maybe Victor 210 to the VOR. Nope, not that. To the VOR. Flight plan. Victor 210. And then probably Victor 12. Would you agree?
Okay.
To Johnstown. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty solid route. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
What is this little doodad right here? The almost Z looking thing.
That's the changeover point for a VOR.
What is this little 5.7?
That's just the distance from that point to the VOR.
All right. Let's talk about an approach then. It's a pretty straightforward route. Not really a whole lot to talk about along that. Unless you got any questions so far.
I think I'm okay. So the arrows, like where Zotby is, like where Zotby is right next to Johnstown, like that arrow right above it, like right to the upper left of Zotby. Yep. Does that mean, what does that exactly mean? I know there's like a nuance between one arrow and another arrow.
Oh, if I remember correctly, isn't that just associated with the 12?
I think it might be, yeah. That's one thing I just was confused about. I think there's two different types of arrows.
God. I need to condense these notes. So I end up just scrolling. At this point, I might as well just have the whole book. Yeah. Obvious DME is what I'm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so it says obvious DME mileage matches route mileage. That's what it is. So what it's saying is that this section right here between Johnstown and Zotby should be 12 miles when you read an actual DME. You don't have an actual DME, so you never see the discrepancies.
Okay.
Right? But what this one is showing 40 DME from the Johnstown VOR because it wouldn't be obvious given that this section should be 28 miles.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or no, not 28 miles. 12 miles plus 28. Miles. I mean, that's still 40. So I don't know why that one's technically not obvious, but that one is. I don't know. I'd have to. I mean, that's what my DME mileage matches route mileage, and that's I screenshotted that directly from the key. That's the difference. Is that this little arrow is saying that if you were to read your instrument, you should see 12 miles. Given that you're in a G1000, your route mileage and your DME mileage is always going to be the same.
Okay.
All right. So we are looking at the Johnstown. What is this one?
Yeah,
Johnstown. Okay. JST ILS runway 33. Okay.
ILS 33.
Once you get that pulled up, what I want you to do is just read through the chart and then give me again a briefing like I'm the other pilot in the flight deck.
Okay. I'll just look through. Okay.
Yeah, no, of course.
All right. So just confirm we are doing the ILS for runway 33. This chart is valid. On the left side, you can see that mine is valid from October 3rd to October 31st, 2024. So this chart's valid. Localizer frequency for Johnstown is posted up there to make sure we have it. Runway length 6,484. Touchdown zone elevation 2,281. Airport elevation 2,284. So touchdown zone elevation is a little bit 3 feet lower. You need DME for this. Is DME required? We have that. Non-standard takeoff minimums, non-standard altimeter minimums. Glide slope unusable beyond 5 degrees left of course. And that's some op equipment. The Mouser is just the type of lighting that we're going to see. Missed approach, climb to 3,700, then climbing right turn to 4,600. Direct JSCVR, DME and hold. Continue climb and hold to 4,600. This hold here is actually really weird. It's like literally right over the runway. It's right over the airport. It's an ATIS approach. We're going to be on tower, ground, clearance, UCOM if we need it. Minimums are going to be 2,481 feet. And
Yeah.
Okay. So you read the chart kind of verbatim, right? And I think that's what a lot of students do, that because they're afraid they're going to miss something, right?
Okay.
Read the whole chart to yourself is what I'm kind of getting at there. Give me a briefing. Tell me a story. Tell me how we're going to accomplish getting from where we are down to the runway. So, hey, man, we're doing the ILS runway 3. I don't see any NOTAMs saying that the glide slope's out of service. We're definitely going to be doing the ILS. I've got a valid chart. We're getting vectored onto final. Our final approach fix looks like it's WABVA. We're going to expect to intercept that at 4,600 and track down to our minimums of 2,481. If I break out, it looks like going to be a right turn off. And I got plenty of runway. Touchdown zone elevation is 2,281. So I'm going to drop down to 23. I'm going to drop down to 2,400 if I see the rabbits without the runway. If I don't see anything, I'm going to do the mist. It's a climb turn to 3,700, then climbing right turn to 4,600, direct to JST VOR and hold. And we're going to continue up to 4,600 in that hold. This is going to be quick. Given that it's right on top of the airport. So when we climb out, it's going to be a quick little whip around. It's going to put us right over top of the VOR. So just be aware of that cone of confusion on top of the VOR.
Yeah.
DME is required. We don't have it, but we're using GPS in lieu of it. Make sure I always stay within 5 degrees. It seems like that glide slope's out of service on the left side, or not out of service, but it's unreliable if I get more than 5 degrees off course on the left side. Comments, questions, concerns, additions.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Read the entire thing to yourself.
Okay.
Make sure you don't miss any notes. Things like autopilot not available, or not allowed, or not authorized. We're in a G1000. This airplane's going to set up our localizer for us. But again, as a pilot, if I'm the other pilot, I want you to tell me a story about how we're accomplishing this so we can create a shared mental model. That's really the end goal of a briefing. A briefing isn't to rattle off an entire approach plate, especially if you get into that multi-crew environment. It's to create a shared mental model. Even for you, if you just start reading the plate from top to bottom, did that really give you an idea of what you were doing for this approach?
Yeah, you're right. Not completely.
No, because we didn't even talk about the plan view or the profile. You read the entire strip at the top, talked about the mist, and talked about our minimums.
Yeah.
But am I going to WABVA? Am I doing a procedure turn? Am I getting vectored? All this stuff. Okay. Only thing I missed is, I like to talk about the minimum safe altitude. We lose situational awareness. We're popping right up to 4,400 and staying within 25 DME of the VOR.
Okay.
Those are just that's what I know when I'm teaching airline pilots, that's what I want. I don't want you to just read the plate from top to bottom. I want you to tell me a story.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
But that's why you need to read the whole plate before you ever start talking to prevent you from missing something.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go look at another airport that you're not familiar with, or let me see if there's anything weird at this one. No. Let's go here. So I'm looking at Scottsdale, Kilo Sierra Delta Lima.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be looking at the VOR DME Alpha.
Okay. VOR DME Alpha.
Mm-hmm. Why is this one called an Alpha and it's not assigned a runway?
This will get you like within the airport vicinity, but it's not going to maybe direct it to a runway.
Okay. So
yeah, I've never seen anything. I haven't checked something out like this before.
All right. Well, let's go check out. Where the hell did Coolidge go? There it is. So this one's a VOR 5 into Coolidge, but this one still doesn't get me that close. Like I've still got minimums of 2,200 feet. Airport elevation's 1,500 feet. So, I mean, that's barely below pattern.
So maybe for this one, you're supposed once you break out of minimums, enter the pattern like you would for if you're a VFR, like a downwind base final.
Well, where does this approach spit me out at? If it's intended for runway 5.
On runway 5 approach. Are we on the VOR?
The VOR 5 at Coolidge. Sorry, I completely.
Okay. At Coolidge, and that's not Scottsdale right now.
No, Papa 08. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry about that. Coolidge. Okay. Approach VOR runway 5. Okay. So it kind of puts us.
So what's my final approach course for this VOR runway 5?
Final approach course is going to be 071.
Okay, so it doesn't really line up with runway 5, but it's still assigned to runway 5. What about this Coolidge one, or the Scottsdale one? Where did it go?
Yeah, that one doesn't line you up with the runway either.
Okay, well, what's the difference? So this one's pointing me a final approach course of 003, and the Coolidge one is 071. Neither of them really line you up for a runway.
Yeah.
So the VOR DME Alpha, it's more than 30 degrees off of a final approach course.
Okay.
Okay, it's more than 30 degrees off of runway course or runway heading. That's why it's assigned a letter and not a runway.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Degrees. Yeah, okay.
All right. Now, what does this green MON mean to you?
That's like that's the minimum operation network. That's an airport that has a minimum operation network.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It's just pretty much it's a network that allows like old legacy decommissioned VORs to still receive a signal like within 100 nautical miles of the VOR.
So
just different, it makes bigger service volumes.
So minimum operational network, what it really means is that I will always be within 100 nautical miles of an airport where I can use a VOR to get me onto an approach course that would get me to the ground.
Okay.
The Casa Grande is a minimum operational network airport, saying it's one of those airports that is serviced in that manner.
Okay.
All right. The VOR that's always going to service it is going to be this Stanfield VOR.
Okay.
All right. Well, it might. I don't know. I'm a little torn on that, on which one they're going to shut down, whether it be Stanfield or Sky Harbor. The Phoenix VOR, because Stanfield, all of the approaches into Casa Grande start from it, but Phoenix Sky Harbor isn't a minimum operational network airport.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one they're going to shut down. Most likely it's going to be the Phoenix one. Let me see. Is there any other weird, funny looking things? I guess so far what I would say is probably go read through the key. Go find a bunch of approaches you've never done and just get a little bit more practice doing weird ones.
Yeah, I've been so focused on just the basic.
Yep.
Same thing over ILS, RNAV, nothing crazy, VOR at my airport, and some of them similar nearby. So that's good to look at. Yeah. Yeah,
because here's the thing: you'd rather do it right now, make the mistakes, and learn than try to figure it out on your own when you're out, playing around on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've looked at some approach charts, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this one talking about? And I got to go open the AIM and a key and a legend and stuff. And I'm like, what are we doing here? I'm calling my buddies. I'm calling, fresh new double eyes, new instrument instructors. Like I've been teaching for almost a decade and I'm calling brand new, wet signature double eyes going like, hey man, what does this mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay. So since you've got kind of an instructor just sitting there available to you, find some weird ones. You've got 4 flights, so you've got access to everywhere. Arizona's got a bunch of weird ones. Yeah, I know Arizona's got a bunch of weird ones. But other than that, weather theory seemed pretty solid. The illusions, definitely dig into those again. They're in the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. All right. Let me see. Let me grab my stuff. Your airplane systems, not bad.
Clean up on a few things.
Yeah. Oh, that was one thing that we kind of missed. Okay. So let's look at your route again, or at least a little bit of a route that we planned. I'm going to give you a quick little craft clearance.
Okay.
And we'll talk about radio failures and lost comms. So, Cessna 123, you are cleared from the Lancaster Airport via radar vectors, Wylan, as filed to Junie, EFC of 1900 Zulu. It's currently 1826 Zulu. Squawk 1212, departure frequency 12210, climb maintain 7,000, expect 10,000 10 minutes after departure. You got that?
Yeah, okay. So we're going from Johnstown to Lancaster, not.
Oh, we're going the other way around? Oh, I am so sorry about that. Let me give you another one.
Okay, 1 second. You're really right. I was like, wait, okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So cleared to the Lancaster Airport from Johnstown via radar vectors, Zotby, as filed, to Laman, expect further clearance 1900 Zulu, climb maintain 6,000, expect 9,000 10 minutes after departure, departure frequency 121.0, squawk 1212.
Okay, so we're cleared to Lancaster Airport via radar vectors, Zotby, as filed, then Lanin, and we're expecting further clearance for 1900 Zulu, 6,000, climbing 9,010 minutes after, and then frequency 12212, I'm pretty sure you said, and then squawk 1212.
Read back correct. So we took off. They cleared you up to, your initial altitude of 6,000. We're cruising along. We hit Kofax, and they tell you, and you just can't get ATC anymore. You're trying to get them on the radio. It seems like you might kind of hear them through the fuzz. But you just can't seem to pick them up. What are you going to do? What's the first thing that you're going to do before you start worrying about lost comms?
I'd say just troubleshooting. Make sure maybe my volume's up. Anything like that. Make sure something didn't fail with electronics. Maybe run through a checklist. See if there's anything I can do to fix myself. Check my headset. Maybe I bumped it out. Knock the volume down on my headset thing. Anything like that. And then if I can't find anything that I did or something wrong with the plane like that I can fix, then I would go through my
Okay.
like the MEA and stuff like that. Yeah.
So we're at Kofax at 6,000. They haven't cleared us up to our cruise altitude just yet. And you just can't get the radios back. What are you going to do?
So I'm going to fly the highest of either my MEA, whatever they expected me to fly, or my assigned altitude. So then if they expected me to climb up to 9,010 minutes after, then I'm going to fly the highest of that, whatever it's my MEA. So my MEA is right here is 5,400. So then I'm going to fly the highest of my expected. So that's going to be 9,000. And then for the route, I would just fly So pretty much whatever I was assigned, and if I wasn't assigned anything, then my vectors, and then whatever was expected, like the EFC expected, and if I didn't have that, then I would just fly as filed,
Okay.
whatever I was filed to fly.
So we got to Lawman at 1845.
We got to Loman at 1845. Okay.
Yep. So we're right here at 1845. We had an EFC of 1900. What am I going to do at Lawman now that I'm here?
Allow them to know I'm here, so we don't have any contact with them. So we're expecting further clearance in 1900. So at that point, I would fly as filed.
Okay. So I'm just going to leave Lawman at 1845.
No, I would. Well, at 1900,
Okay.
I would leave Lawman.
Okay. Then we're going to continue on as filed. So filed, we can look at our filed route up here. It looks like I'm going straight to the JST VOR, and then JST. What am I going to do when I get to this JST VOR?
When I get to the JST VOR?
Mm-hmm.
Or the Lancaster VOR?
Sorry. I planned it backwards. Lancaster VOR. When I get to the Lancaster VOR.
Okay. So we get to the Lancaster VOR. So once we get to the Lancaster VOR, I guess we would start. Yeah, I would start the approach and land as close to my ETA as I possibly could.
Okay. Right. So I'm either going to leave Lancaster and head directly to a fix where I can start an approach, right? So can I start an approach from Lancaster? Looks like I can. Yeah, I can go Lancaster, direct, do my procedure turn, and head inbound.
Yeah.
Solid. Now, the only thing I would kind of add to this, right? Instead of verbalizing kind of those rote memorizations, the MEA, the Avenue F, actually tell me what your plan is. Okay. Because that's really what the DPE wants to know. They don't want to know that you memorized Avenue F and MEA. Okay. They want to know that if this was to happen in real life, you'd actually be able to think through the problem and figure out the solution. Okay. So we gave you the craft clearance, told you your radio died there. You got to Lawman at 1845. What are we going to do? Hey, I'm going to hold at Lawman till my EFC of 1900. Then I'm going to continue on my filed route, which is going to take me to the Lancaster VOR. The Lancaster VOR does start the ILS runway 8. So if the winds work with ILS runway 8, I'm going to go and fly the ILS runway 8 and try to land as close to my estimated time of arrival as possible. If I'm in VFR conditions, I'm just going to land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Observe the traffic flow and all that stuff.
Well, if I'm in VFR conditions, my radio died back here at Koufax.
Then just land.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm probably just going to go, I don't know, to Altoona. Right.
Yeah. We're going to Altoona.
Or back to Johnstown if it's VFR and I'm not worried about, control and all that other jazz. Right.
Yeah.
So instead of running through those, those rote memorizations, let's talk about the plan versus the rote memorization, right?
Okay.
Because the following question the DP is going to ask, if you just run through the rote memorization, the following question the DP is going to ask is like, okay, well, then what are we actually going to do? Trying to pry and dig for more. But if you go straight into your plan, it's like, oh, okay, this kid knows what they're doing. I don't need to dig more on this issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Let's go find a busy airport.
Okay.
Let's go back to Philadelphia and we're going to look at the taxi diagram.
Okay.
So the KPHL taxi diagram, what is this right here? This little HS1.
That is a hotspot.
Okay, so what is a hotspot? Define to me what a hotspot is.
Just a spot on the airport. It just presents increased risk during ground operations.
Okay, so why is HS1 a hotspot? Like, what do I need to be worried about with HS1? hotspot 1?
Just the complexity of it. Maybe entering the wrong runway, entering a wrong taxiway because it's more complex and there's different routes you can go.
Okay. Is there any way that I could look to try and see if there's maybe some more details on this?
Yes. So if you go to like the airport, there's like a section that says, like the FAA section that says hotspot. You can click on that. Hotspot 1, there's information, potential for inadequate entry onto runway 1331. Taxiway A does not lead to the end of runway 12. Taxiway Y and S intersection in close proximity.
Okay.
9 right, 27 left.
All right. So
Stuff like that.
that's really what they're looking for, right? Why is hotspot 1 hotspot 1? Don't just give me the bullshit of like, oh, it's complex. Tell me, why is hotspot 1 a hotspot?
Okay.
What has happened here? Oh, close proximity to the runway, inadvertent entry into the runway, alpha doesn't go to the end, stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, other than that, I mean, there's just, again, little cleanup things here and there. But clean those things up that we talked about. And I think you'll be solid, right? And I know a lot of times, we do these mock check rides and we're finding, I don't want to say a lot of things that were wrong. But it might feel like that. I don't know what the DP is going to ask. I don't know how nitpicky they are on certain subjects. So I'm going to be nitpicky on everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If I know you can pass, if you're 150% better than what the check ride's expected to be, then I know you're going to pass the check ride, because we're all going to go into these check rides nervous. I remember the last person I signed off for a check ride, I guess, was my wife. Even as an instructor, I was nervous. I was like, oh, do they got it? Yeah, they probably got it. Yeah, they definitely got it.
Yeah.
Do they got it? No, they definitely got it. Okay. So if I'm nervous, wondering if you got it, I know you're going to be nervous. Okay. So I'd rather you be trained to what I think is going to be the safest level at going into your check ride. Because again, it's not just about check ride passing. Okay. It's also about, are you going to get yourself in trouble? Are you going to get yourself hurt? Are you going to end up with a pilot deviation? Not just because, I'm concerned about your well-being, but also I'm concerned about my instructor certificate. I don't want to show up to an NTSB hearing. Right?
Not good.
Because if something does happen to one of my students, sure, they're going to go ask the DPE, hey, let me see your plan of action. They're going to say, hey, your plan of action met the appropriate X, Y, and Z standards. Then they're going to go talk to the instructor, and the instructor is going to go, okay, well, these are my lesson plans. This is what we did. And the instructor is going to be the one that's a little bit more held accountable to the actions of the student, at least for 2 years. After 2 years, if you're still screwing up, it's on you. Okay.
Yeah.
So any other questions, any subjects you think you want to dig into a little bit more?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit of weather.
Okay.
Maybe some more nuances with weather.
Now, are you saying weather theory, weather charts?
Can we do charts actually? Sometimes I get a little confused with those.
Let's go ahead to decision supporting imagery, and we'll dig into that. All right. Weather prognostic chart. So first off, right off the bat, as a private pilot, instrument rated private pilot, why are we looking at this chart? What is so important about this chart? Why would you use this chart?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would use this chart to see like where cold fronts are, warm fronts are, high pressure systems, low pressure systems. Those can kind of give you a overview of what the weather is like in a certain region or area on the United States.
Okay. Now, I see a bunch of these lines over here. What are these lines?
ISO bars.
Okay. What are they showing me?
It's pretty much just constant like lines of barometric pressure.
Yeah, lines of constant pressure. So they're really close together over here, but they're pretty far apart over here. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
What would I expect over here that I wouldn't expect over here?
So the closer they are, the more windy it's going to be, and the farther away they are, the less windy it's going to be.
Okay, it's a greater pressure gradient, so I could expect more wind. I could expect more weather. Right? Think of this as like a contour map. Have you ever looked at like a contour map like for hiking?
Once. if I remember correctly.
Okay. Well, really what these are showing is how steep the atmosphere is.
Okay.
Right? Because we know high pressure goes to low pressure, right?
Yeah.
So if I see all of these lines really close together, it's showing me that this high pressure section is moving quickly into this low pressure section. Well, when it's moving quickly into this low pressure section, I might see more buildup. That's why I got rain, right? That's why I got all this moisture building up. It's showing me that it's going to rain in Wisconsin in 6 hours. Now, if I go to 12 hours, oh, damn, looks like the rain's going to pass over me in the next 12 hours.
Okay.
All right. But we could see how quickly it moved given that big pressure gradient.
Okay.
All right. But we see since we didn't have a very big pressure gradient over here next to these high pressures, it didn't move very fast. That high pressure is still kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let's look at this one. Now, if I'm looking at this little orange section up here, what kind of weather am I expecting? What is this one showing me? And I can see it right here, right? Moderate or greater turbulence.
Yeah.
All right. What altitudes would I expect moderate or greater turbulence in that section?
In that section from 24,000 feet down to 20,000 feet.
Right. What level of turbulence would I expect? Would it be moderate, severe, extreme?
Moderate.
It's definitely going to be moderate. If I'm flying around in California, and I see visible moisture, what altitude would I have to climb up to start accumulating ice on the airplane?
The freezing level.
And what is it?
What else? The freezing level. And what is it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could go to.
Well, it's on this chart. So we see ceiling less than 1,000, visibility less than 3, ceiling 1,000 to 3,000, or visibility 3 to 5. We already talked about the turbulence one. Freezing level above mean sea level. It's that little dashed blue one, isn't it? All right.
Yeah.
So if I'm, again, flying around in California, I'm in visible moisture. What altitude would I have to climb to if I wanted to start picking up ice?
Would it be above mean sea level? Or above the clouds? Like, are you talking about the clouds up towards Montana and stuff like that? Because that's where the moisture is, or is it in California too, like fog and stuff?
No, what I'm getting at is that if I was in visible moisture, right? Let's just say there is clouds in California. I am flying around in IMC. I'm currently at 9,000. ATC says, Cessna 123, can you climb up to 12,000 for me? Could I safely accept that clearance?
You cut out like the whole entire time. I'm not gonna lie. For like
sorry.
You're fine.
Now, so let's say I'm flying around in California, currently at 9,000 feet. I'm in IMC conditions. I don't know where the top is. Right? I did my appropriate pre-flight, so I've looked at this chart beforehand. All right. ATC says Cessna 123, climb maintain 12,000. Could I accept that clearance safely? Given this chart.
Okay. Given this chart, I would say no.
Why not?
Because you said the ceilings are at 9,000, and if I'm above that, it's gonna be freezing, and I'm in the moisture.
Okay. So the freezing level is 12,000 right here. 120 right on this blue line showing me.
So then, so it would just be no, because that's where you're going to start freezing at.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
We're in visible moisture. We're in IFR conditions, right? ATC clears me up to the freezing level. I'm not going to go.
Yeah. No.
Okay. That might be a little bit more, we might have to worry about more of that, like, a little bit northern, Oregon, Montana, stuff like that, where we've got 4,000 and 8,000, right? That's a little bit more reasonable for our Cessna to climb up to anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely this chart, just read it. Okay. It's all there in front of you. The information is all right there in front of you. All right. Nobody's ever going to try to give you this chart without the key. So use it.
Okay.
Okay. Obviously we've got the other charts that we could look at, like the probability of icing, this one over here.
Yeah.
Look at prog charts. That's the same one we just looked at. It's GFA tool. Oh, is it still the same thing? No. Look at it, this one. Load. Is my internet being crappy again? There we go.
Maybe a little bit.
So if we're looking at this chart or this weather source, right? The ceiling and visibility one. It's really the graphical area forecast tool. Have you seen this before? The GFA forecast, right? So this thing's awesome. Make sure you use it, especially when it comes to icing conditions. You obviously can't fly in icing conditions. So pick your altitude where you're going to be at, right? So we're going to be up here at 9,000 most likely, IFR conditions. Being away from the ground isn't necessarily a bad idea. And if we're flying, what was the route again? I know I can do it around here somewhere. It was KL. Oh, where'd we go? There it is. KJST to KLNS.
Yeah.
Path. So it looks like icing conditions aren't really a concern.
Yeah, not at all.
Not at all. Like not even slightly.
Pretty clear skies here right now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe turbulence. That might be no. Yeah, turbulence. No, turbulence is fine.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a pretty calm day today too. It's pretty like.
But if we were going to be flying in a couple days, maybe we'd want to look at our prog chart. And if we were flying in, 90 hours, oh, look, there's a low pressure that's going to be moving through. Cold front that's going to be moving through.
Yeah, it's not good.
Pretty straight. Did you have questions on this? I know it can seem like a lot.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think you
Yeah.
kind of helped me out the freezing level thing and everything like that, bigger picture of it.
Yeah. And I know it can be kind of hard with the big picture ideas. Especially since you're not going very far, right? You're not making any plans to go very far.
Yeah.
Especially in the training environment. So just make some plans and play with the ideas, right? Look through it. Let's find an airplane on Trade-A-Plane that you like. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's in California and you need to get it home. So build yourself a fake IFR flight plan. Figure out how long it's going to take you. Because a lot of these airplanes, they'll give you like a little bit of performance number, right? Performance numbers.
Yeah.
So if I go look at like a Cherokee 6, and Google, how fast does a Cherokee 6 go? Okay, so I know a Cherokee 6 goes 127 knots and it burns 14 gallons an hour. Let me build an IFR flight plan to go from California to home to get the practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then, if you've got like Microsoft Flight Sim, go practice it in Microsoft Flight Sim too. Because it's a simulator, it's instrument, right? We're not worried about can you land. We're worried about can you do these procedures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that definitely helps. But yeah, other than that, like we touched on a few things that I'd really recommend you clean up. But beyond that, I mean, they were pretty small things that's just going to take a little bit of studying to clean up to make sure that you're ready. If you do run into any other questions, I know you said you don't really use Discord that often. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a quick little tour of here just so you can get the idea of what's going on. So when you first showed up, right, it dropped you right here. Yeah. Right. So, you clicked whichever one of these is associated with you, the little mouse saying you're a student, the little bird saying you're a pilot, and the little cat saying that, you're a human being. Any kind of announcements made, they're all going to be right here. If you ever leave the Discord, we're going to publicly shame you right here. Okay. No. General, this is just, hey, somebody posted the video of them doing a wheelie the other day. All right. So I don't really, maybe don't go doing wheelies down the highway. I generally don't recommend, breaking the law. Little kitty pictures, dog pictures, any kind of memes. Pretty straightforward. But then we've got our aviation stuff. Aviation general, you saw a cool airplane. You passed your check ride. anything like that, come share it, come hang out. Same thing, content sharing. You made a fun video. You went to Oshkosh and took a bunch of pictures. Share them. Pilot training. If you've got any questions while you're studying, come ask. Right?
Okay, cool.
It's not just me as an instructor. There's another 8 instructors in here as well. They're signified by the little the darker blue, or kind of like the gray blue. That's pilots. The red is student pilots. The blue are flight instructors. Okay. So, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to come hang out, ask. Flight training questions. If you got something that you really, really want to dig into, you can create a new post, build a chain. Any kind of news, same thing.
Awesome, yeah.
Check ride gouge. Come back, tell us how the check ride went so that we can make them more accurate.
Awesome.
All right. But yeah, the instruction doesn't necessarily end right here. If you've got more questions, don't hesitate to reach out. All right.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
All right, man. You enjoy the rest of your night or day, I guess.
I appreciate everything. Yeah.
All right, man.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.